Video for Tract 7 at the Tracts at White River. This is a 10-acre property. We've got it, we're kind of zoomed in on it here on the MapRight app, which is now called the Land ID app. They changed the name a few months ago. We've been using MapRight or Land ID for 3 or 4 years, I believe. It's been great. With the name change, they did make a few kind of structural changes. So if you're already using the MapRight app, you may have to update it or download the Land ID app. But it still works pretty well. We've created the map here, and then we've zoomed in to show you the property. It's basically all wooded. You've got access to the southeast corner of the property via the easement road system. That's where the property is going to be the highest, and we'll zoom out in a second here, but we wanted to start zoomed in just to give you a good look and let you know that, hey, this is a heavily wooded property. If there's been any logging out here, for many years, we didn't see any signs of it. So it does look really good. Why don't we switch over to, we're going to change the base layer, which is one of the things we can do with Land ID. They usually have several different aerial views. Often we use Google because it's generally the clearest and the most recent. These are all about as recent, but in this case, Google, when we switch to it, is a wintertime view. Which is also helpful. It's just not as pretty a shot as the other one. But with the Google view that we're seeing right here, it's even more obvious that this property has large timber and that there hasn't been any recent logging, or you would see limbs and all kinds of things from the air if there was any logging within the last several years. And we just didn't see any sign of it on this tract. So we're excited about that. As you look at the north end, and if we turn on the layer for water features, there we go. That's going to show a little creek bed. That does exist. There is a gravel creek bed there. It does not flow all year. In fact, of the 4, 5, 6 times we've been out recently to the area, it hasn't been flowing any of those times. But you can see that it does flow sometimes, and there might have been pockets of water in it. But the cool thing is, there's some cool rock features. It's a good source of gravel for potentially building projects on your property. It's just a neat thing to have. It's over on the north side on the lowest part of the property. The property, as we mentioned, I think we mentioned, if not, here we go. The property is the highest by the easement road at its southeast corner, and then slopes down as you go northwesterly. In fact, we could put a topo overlay on this here, really show you that. Well, if you're used to topo maps, then this makes sense. If not, we'll just try to give it a quick explanation here. Basically, the lines on the topo map, the contour lines, are indicating the change in elevation. And on this particular topo map, the elevation change between 2 lines is, I believe it's 20 feet. The darkened lines don't have any special significance, but every 5th line is a darkened line. So then if you're glancing at it, it's easy to tell 100-foot increments, because from dark line to dark line, being 5 lines total, would be 100-foot elevation change. So as we look at Tract 7, and we know that it's highest on the south east corner, having been there, we know that's the high area. You can see it's basically flat on the southeast corner. It's the top of a large, wide knoll, and that's why you've got a whole area here which is kind of like an oblong thing with no lines. That's a flat area. It slopes down from there. So as you go north, as you go west, property slopes down. So you've got the potential for some stunning views from this property. And as it starts out, we walked just a little bit. We pulled in here on the level part, walked down to where it started to slope down. From what we could see, we couldn't see this super steep part. See, when you have these lines pushed this close together, that's indicating a pretty steep drop. So not likely that it's a bluff or anything like that, but lines this close, they're saying, hey, from this dark line to this dark line, we've got a 100-foot drop in elevation. So that's pretty steep. If we look over here, alternately, start at the top where it's flat and then go kind of at this northwest, follow the little white hand there. That's following kind of a natural ridge downwards. So that's quite a bit less steep. So if this were a situation where you wanted to create some cool trails or maybe some alternate sites, partway down the hill, judging by this topo map, this area right here would be where you'd want to do it. And looking at that topography, that actually looks pretty reasonable. I mean, you'd want to get on the ground and see it if that's what you wanted to do. But that looks like a place where a guy could go in and probably do a trail, down to somewhere in here, depending on where you want it to be, and maybe even do a switchback and work your way down the rest of the way. But that would be a project that would take certainly some equipment. So dropping down to the lowest part where the creek bed is, that's the northwest corner. And so it's generally pretty much flat around here by the creek bed. Obviously, you would not want to build there because you don't want to build next to a creek bed. And in this case, I believe that actual creek bed is within the mapped FEMA floodplain. And we can check that on this map, actually. That should pop up in a second here. Because we've got the White River as we zoom out here. The White River is less than a mile to the west. So, I mean, this is extremely close to the very, very popular White River. And the FEMA floodplain obviously includes the river and then some of the arteries that lead into the river. And this creek bed would be one of those. So that shaded blue area is the mapped FEMA floodplain. So not that you would build adjacent to the creek bed on a flat area adjacent to a creek bed. You wouldn't do that. But if you did, that would be within the FEMA flood zone. So really don't know what that would entail, other than you would have a tough time getting insurance on your structure for sure. And there might be some governmental regulations you'd have to deal with. So just don't build in a FEMA floodplain. Obviously the prime building spot on this, well, not obviously, but to us the prime building spot on this is this southeast section. Get at least 50 feet or maybe 100 feet off the road, more if you want to start going down this hill. But that's where you're going to have some views. That's where you're going to have probably more level ground. And then you've got a beautiful property here that you can explore and hunt and camp and all that good stuff. Fish in the White River, which, like we said, is less than a mile away, which is fantastic. Now let's switch back to an aerial map. We'll zoom out here. We always try to keep these intro videos short, but oftentimes that's just not possible when you get a property with a lot of information. And feel free to play around with the interactive map. You'll find it in the listing page for the property. It's going to be extremely similar to this one we're looking at, but it might not have the dimensions and whatnot for Tract 7, which is what we're looking at here is Tract 7. It likely will show everything else, but it won't be specific to Tract 7. But you can still use it just the same as we're using this one as far as zooming in and out and all that stuff. So we're going to turn off that FEMA layer. There we go. Okay, so when you come to visit the property, you'll be coming from the east. Likely you'll come in on Lock 3 Road to the northeast part of the development, if you will. Lock 3 actually goes through and then comes back out on the southeast part, but the southern part is really not passable with the vehicle. It has not been the couple times we've tried it. So we give directions based on coming in on the north part of Lock 3 Road. And just for now, I'm going to turn off the water features. There we go. Also, the land ID maps. Text is tricky because the text does not size when the map changes. And so as we zoom out, the text doesn't, I mean, it looks awful for the most part. But as we zoom back in, it should start to line up. There we go. So you'll come in on Lock 3 Road, which is a gravel road. And it's a county road, but the county basically only maintains up to about where the last house is on Lock 3 Road, which is just before you get into these tracts. So somewhere right in here, if you look at the little hand, that's where the last house is. That's where the county maintains to. But then the county road does continue. It's this greenish line, goes through Tract 6, Tract 5, 4, 3, etc., etc. And then as you get down here, you start to see these purple lines, which are easement roads or trails. And here's the one that goes right to the river. And that is really, really cool. I mean, you can basically drive right to the water if you want to. There's a little concrete ramp that goes under the train tracks. These are train tracks here. Very, very low use train tracks. It's just for one train that gets sand from somewhere up here, a couple miles to the north. But anyway, you can fish from right there. You can potentially put a little boat or kayak or canoe in the water. It's really, really cool, and that's right there. So seconds from the property. But anyway, go check out the river. But to get to the property, you would stay on Lock 3 Road, which really is more of a four-wheel drive trail. Even where the county maintains it, it's not something where they're spending millions of dollars on Lock 3 Road. They want to maintain it for the people that have houses. And then to some extent, it's an access road for, I guess it'd be the city or whoever maintains the lock and the dam up here. This is Lock 3, and that's why it's called Lock 3 Road. And they've got some trail that goes up, Vinbar Road maybe, that goes up to it. So it has the potential to generate power. I don't know if it's in use right now for power generation, but it is within the, I guess, the lock system, which is from maybe the 1930s or 40s or 50s out here. I'm not sure about that. But anyway, back to the road. So the Lock 3 Road, if you don't take a right to go to the access point, it's going to curve to the left and start going up a hill. Not a steep hill, but it's fairly long. And then you get to the top, it'll level out. And if you look to your left, you will see, you should see the gate, which is going to lead into the bulk of the tracts out here. And so get a hold of us if you would before you make the trip out there, and we'll let you know if there's a combination or anything needed for that gate. But once you go through the gate, take the easement road that'll go up a hill. And this is another situation where it's not what we would call a steep hill, but it's quite long. So you do want four-wheel drive. You don't want to get, 2/3 of the way up and then your back wheels start to spin and, then you got to back down again or whatnot. So four-wheel drive absolutely required for any of these tracts. It just is. It's a necessity. Got to have a four-wheel drive or all-wheel drive truck or SUV, not only for the four-wheel drive, but also for the additional clearance that you get with the four-wheel drive truck or SUV. And also because of the fact that most four-wheel drive trucks or SUVs are going to have some type of tire that has a bit of an aggressive tread, as opposed to a car that's going to have straight street tires with no aggression to the tread, and likely softer, like a 2-ply tire, rather than a truck or SUV, which is going to have a 4 or 6 or 8-ply tire, which is always better on gravel roads. So anyway, four-wheel drive truck or SUV required. Take the easement road, you'll come to the top, and really once you get to the top, you're really, well, why don't we switch to topo here and then we'll know for sure. Okay, so you've gone through the gate down here. It stays pretty level all the way through there. You get into the tracts and it starts to rise up. And it's not steep, but it is somewhat of a long hill. It kind of levels on track 10 and then keep going, and it drops down and back up, levels on track 7. If you have the Land ID app, that's going to be so nice when you go out there, because if you follow the instructions either on the app or on the FAQ page of our website, you can get this map to pull up on your phone and a little colored dot to indicate where you are within the map. So even if you're driving from Texas, you can have it open. You can zoom way out and it'll show a little dot where the development is. It'll show a dot where you are. You get closer and closer, you can zoom in, and eventually if you wanted to, you could be on this map and watching your little dot. Like, oh, I'm getting close. Oh, I overshot it. Now I'm on track 8. So it's really handy for that. Track 7, like we said, once you get up there, you'll see a long stretch of level ground. The intersection might be a good kind of giveaway that you're on the property as well. There'll be the road that curves to the right, as well as the road that goes straight. And let's go back to Google. We could do Google. Just a wintertime view. That gives you a pretty good look at it. Tract 7 we love because not only does it have that little creek bed crossing over it, which is always cool, but it's one of the tracks that is quite private, but is not tucked into the back corner of the development either. So you kind of got the best of both worlds. You're close to the water as far as the actual river, which is nice. The deer and turkey population is fantastic out here from everything we've seen. In fact, we had several game cams set up while the roads were kind of being cleaned up out here, and I believe one of them was right on Tract 7 in that kind of where the roads come together. And we got just hundreds and hundreds of photos of deer and turkey coming and feeding and hanging out and fighting and playing right there. So that was really cool. But anyway, we'll cut off the video here. We've gone already longer than we planned on, but beautiful property. Check out the other videos and maps and all that good stuff on the listing page. Give us a call if you have any questions at all. These are great tracks, very private, beautiful area, and we would love to speak to you about Tract 7 at the Tracts at White River.